Hello, hello, hello. I know everybody has been hankering for some good forging action, and you have asked, and so you shall receive. So we're trying something a little bit different. Guys, it is the middle of July in South Georgia. Temperatures have been consistently over 110 degrees. And I'm going to tell you, doing videos like we used to do with the full camera, me in full get up and drag, trying to not only perform but do blacksmithing, buddy, just not cutting it in this heat. So we're trying something a little bit different this time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And, but this is so much easier on us. And me actually doing commentary over video allows me to do what I love most, and that's run my mouth. But it lets me focus on running my mouth as opposed to having to do the demo and run my mouth, which inevitably leads to problems. So this video, I think we've actually done the barbecue fork before, way back in the day, but I figured we'd do one this way since we were working on some stock in the shop. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So let's start real quick. I want to tell you a little bit for those of you that are new, which I think the majority of you are not new. I think all the people going to be watching this are my old crowd, about Jay Riekert. So Jay was my mentor in Andersonville. I mean, he was a lot more than that. He was, essentially a father to me on that end. And Jay is the one that really got me on that next level of blacksmithing. Now, I was already hammering before I went to work with him, but man, the time that I spent with him here at the Andersonville Forge was just fantastic. Jay was, now don't get me wrong, Jay was cantankerous. He was a severe alcoholic, and he had a foul attitude most of the time. But I love that old man, and I love aggravating him, as you can see here. Now, we're supposed to be being dignified, but I can't resist. But suffice it to say that this man meant a tremendous amount to me, and a lot of what you guys get are right out of what Jay taught me. Just absolutely. So starting off our video for our fork, I'm actually going to open up a book, and this is a reprint of Jay's book called The Andersonville Smithy. Now, Jay's book was also a book of formulas, and what I've done to keep from ruining an original copy, I've reprinted it here. And this was Jay's, not only his book to the masses, but it was his pattern book. And so for 30-something years, if I've wanted to come do work, I refer to his book. So let me stop that video right there just for a moment. And here's the deal. The difference between screwing around in science is writing stuff down. 30 years later, even though what Jay had taught me is important, what he wrote down is even more important. So when you're in the shop, even if you're experimenting, keep good notes. It will be absolutely critical, because don't think that you're going to make a weird S-hook 2 years ago and you're going to remember a damn thing about how long it was, how you did it, unless you wrote that stuff down. So the stock that we're starting with, and the stock for all of Jay's tools, was 3/16 by 1/2 inch. This is pretty much a standard stock size for us doing what I consider the lower end of our pieces. This is going to be barbecue forks and spoons, candle holders. There's a lot of our simple, small stuff that's made from this size stock. It's inexpensive, and it makes pretty stuff. The piece we're cutting is going to be 20 inches long, and that's the standard size for our barbecue fork. We're going to be using our coal forge today, and I've got mine rigged up on a foot pedal. Now, the only thing is, of course, that's 3/16. That means it's thin, and that means it heats very quickly. So if you're used to using a gas forge, be careful. Now, one of the things I really prefer using the coal for doing this type of hardware because of the bends. The first thing that we're going to start with here is we're actually going to be doing the handle on this. I'll be using a custom-made jig. What I'll do is I'll actually turn a little lug on that end, a catch actually, and I'll be using it with that Hardy tool. Now, I'm actually pulling pretty hard on that piece, and I'm going to roll it around, but notice how tight that bend is. If the rest of that handle was hot like it came out of a gas forge, I would never ever be able to do it that way. So for doing a lot of these tight, clean bends, a coal forge does have several advantages. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is put a nice, attractive twist on the handle. So we'll walk this over to our vise, and I'm just eyeballing this essentially. So we'll lock this in. If you have not made yourself a twisting wrench like the one I have here, do so. They are super handy. And this is not even one of the fancy old ones. This is just a crescent wrench with an extra little handle. One complete turn. Now watch this little trick right here. I need to straighten this. It gets a little catawampus. And if I put it back in the vise, that way, bam, check that out. Straightens that bad boy right up. No problem. Job done. We're going to be going back to the fire now. And actually, what we need to do is we've actually got to cut some tines. Now, here's an issue. We're going to chisel those tines, right? Not in my shop. So I'm going to pause the video right here because I've got a story for you. So look at this young, thin fella. This is me at the Andersonville Forge sometime around the year 2000. And so when I was learning, it was so important. Jay was the first guy I ever wanted to make proud of me. And I was manic about it. And his forks, right there where the forks split, the inside of those forks was a beautiful cut. Beautifully, like square edges. And I'm like, man, I want to get as good as that. So for a month, I tried to use every manner of chisel and file to get the identical style of split that was so clean with what Jay did. And I'm going to tell you, fellas, I was about to lose my freaking brains. I tried so many ways to duplicate what Jay did. I used files that I bought from, chisels I bought from the hardware store. I made chisels. I did chisel bevels. I did flat bevels. I tried every freaking thing I could, and I could not duplicate how Jay's split looked. Just could not freaking do it. And it was one of the few times that I kind of gave up. I mean, I wanted to be able to impress Jay, but this one just wasn't happening. So I went up and I said, Jay, I said, man, I have been trying to duplicate this split in your forks for a freaking month, and I just can't do it. Would you please show me what chisel you're using or how you're doing this? And Jay said, this split right here, when he held the fork, I said, yes, sir. He said, this one right here. I said, yes, sir. So Jay picks it up and he holds it straight up in the air. And he acts like he's walking to the anvil. But at that point, he goes right past the anvil into the tool shop. And grinning like a jackass eating briars, he turns on the bandsaw and says, "Brr." You have no idea how much I wanted to murder that man at that particular moment. But a clean and effective cut, the best cut, is always done with a bandsaw. You guys can do this on a horizontal as well if you stand the blade up. You can do it with a chisel, but there's just no way to do it a lot better except with a bandsaw. So here I'm bending the tines out of the way. What you want to do is you want to make a split, just like a gymnast, so that you can get to each tine. Now pay very close attention to how I am holding the stock, that I am basically moving it 90 degrees left and right to work that tine. Don't overcomplicate this. You want to work just on the tip. Try not to damage your nice clean cut going on up the way there. Okay? So I've got that tine in place, and I'm going to do the second one. Now, here's the deal. You can take the time and round everything up and do something extra fun and, and sexy. However, this is our $20 fork. It needs to fork, and that is the point. So there's the second tine. Should only take one heat, and now you're ready to go back, and now you're ready to set those tines together. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you don't have some sort of jig to set those tines with, some type of spacer, you are going to play pure hell. Here, I have a bending jig that is 1 inch in diameter, but notice that I'm tapping from both sides evenly. If you don't do that, then you're going to get a tine off to one side. But notice just how perfectly everything sets. Now, you see I'm a little off to the left, but I can adjust that later. And here I am putting the curvature into the tines. Now, more on that later, because that right there is actually a screw up. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So now what I'm looking to do is I'm actually going to thin out the front side of the actual taper on the front end of that fork. But I'm going to have a little bit of a problem. You could have already spotted it. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys right here where we're going to use a fuller to pinch. And uh-oh, dummy put the fork on the wrong side. That's okay. It's a great thing about metal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to flatten it back out. Go back over the horn of the anvil in the other way, tippy tap, and fork repaired. Now I'll still need to do a little bit of cleanup and re-straightening, but you know, believe me, even professionals still get crap backwards every now and then. So just a little adjustment, no big whoop, problem solved. There we go. That's right. You're a smart guy. So most of the time, folks would leave that shank factory. You don't want to do that. That just makes it look bad. I'm going to use a fuller here. You don't have to. You can actually do this over the corner of the anvil. I'm going to make a little bite right here. Maybe that's a little too much, but it'll do. And then from that spot, I'm going to draw back and I'm going to taper the front end of that fork. And I'm going to tell you something. It makes all the difference in how it looks. When you're doing this type of work, one thing that you want to always try to do is break those factory lines. If it's a clean line and there's no hammer mark on it, do something about that. Make sure that if you've got original factory lines on there, you try to keep it to a minimum. That's the mark of really good work. You want that whole iron to look like it's been worked. But I've got a little bit of straightening to do there on the tines. Oh, somebody smart put that in there. Tippy tap. And she's looking like she can poke a pork butt. Yeah, not terrible bad. Check out that hand action. So a little bit of linseed oil and we will be done. So, you know, there's a couple different ways you can do these. This is an older fork there. You can see that it doesn't have that nice tapered front, and it does make a difference. So this is a $20 miracle. We have been selling these bad boys for $20 forever and a day. They are a great seller, and they'll sell, the barbecue forks will sell before anything else will. So now we usually have a set of these bad boys, and I think I've got a picture of them right here. There's a complete set. Now I'm going to give you a piece of advice here. Forget the ladle and forget the spoon. For every 40 forks I sell, I will sell 2 spatulas and maybe 1 ladle and a spoon. Ladles are a nightmare. That dishing takes so much, and if you charge $20 a piece for these, that means that's an $80 set. And there is just a tremendous amount of work in that ladle and that spoon bowl and cutting out that sheet metal. So I would advise you, if you're just getting started, stick with your forks, get them mastered first. Now, later on, when you get into production and you've gotten these basics covered, then you can start doing some fancier stuffs. You know, these ladles are the improved ones on that end of it, but I'm going to tell you, it took me 4 to 5 times as long to make each one of those as it did a fork, and that is called death of a profit margin. So they look good. It's great to have them on the rack. Just remember that not all those times are created equal. Okay? All right, so let's see what else I got here. I got a couple of, I got another shot of those bad boys right there. Oh, there's a good picture of them. That's just a lot of hammering and dishing work, and I'm going to tell you, those ladles are actually kind of small. They need to be bigger, and they are just a pain in the hind end. But once you get things kind of rocking, you can, once you get this basic fork nailed, you can start going into fancier handles. But at that point, when you're doing super fancy handles like these braided handles right here, you're starting to talk some money, because that is getting into super high-end art fork on that end. And again, they're beautiful to have. They make your table look wonderful, but they're not going to be a big mover for the most part, because they're going to be $100, upwards on that end. They're bait for everything else. People will come into your booth to see your $1,000 pieces, but they're only going to leave with a $5 or $10 one. So that's a very good lesson to have. Well, guys, outside of that, man, thank you guys so much for hanging with me. I like the format of this video, but I really do need to hear from you. seriously, do you like this? If we can go back to the old format, but the problem is it is so freaking hot and I don't know how many I can get out. But let me know what you think, what we can improve, all that kind of good stuff, and suggestions if you want to see stuff forged. We listen, and we listen hard. But outside of that, guys, thank you again so much for being right here with me, Trenton Ty, here at Purgatory Ironworks. Please check out TrentonTy.com. We got axes. All those railroad axes I've been doing, all of them, all the new knives, all of it, all for sale on TrentonTy.com, and classes are almost here. So thank you guys again. Be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.